Hi there. Welcome to the Imperfect Prophet podcast for women who wonder. Frankly, as we go through life, I'm sure we wonder about a great deal. First as little kids, then as adolescents, then as young women, then as transitional women. What are we calling ourselves these days? And then you get to this point in life, or my point in life, when you're postmenopausal and wondering what's next. Wondering if the parade already passed you by. Join me, Wonder Wendy. I'm going to be your host as we talk about some of these unique challenges that face women today in a new millennium, going through menopause and trying to live a rich, full life. There might even be a few men and younger women that want to listen in too. That's okay. But there's a roller coaster and we're all on it. And I'm going to be your guide to help you figure out when you should close your eyes, when you should hang on, and maybe we'll explore some ideas for what works for you if it doesn't work for me, or vice versa. So join the conversation, pick up your favorite beverage, and we'll talk to you soon. Welcome to the Imperfect Prophet.
A few weeks ago, I tossed a line into an episode almost casually. I just had my skin checked at the dermatologist's office. I used it as a reminder, go get your skin checked. It's important. It felt like a throwaway line at the time. It's one of those routine adulting after a certain age appointments. You know the list: mammograms, colonoscopies, bone density scans, crossing two things up. Oh, and how about those regular blood draws? At my age, they seem to take blood every time I see the doctor, and that's quarterly. They're checking my cholesterol, my hormone levels, my blood sugar. You know, they might as well be vampires. Anyway, when we were younger, the only time we saw the doctor more than once a year was because we were pregnant or something was wrong. We went for crisis. We went for babies. We went for broken bones. But at some point in midlife, though, maintenance becomes part of the rhythm. It's just what we do as teenagers, I guess. Most of the time, it's not dramatic. It's not even urgent. It's just being responsible and doing good upkeep. It's less about reacting and more about tending. Because this right here is the one body we get for life. Now, science fiction might want us to believe we can transfer our consciousness into another body or upload ourselves into some sleek cybernetic being. But until further notice, you get one body and one life. And lately I've been thinking about that, well, more than usual. I have my beverages. I got two beverages because I couldn't decide if we were in a water vacation recovery mode or this is a heavy topic, I need a glass of wine mode. So whichever mode you're in, share with me, whether it's your morning coffee, your daily water, or something a little bit more potent. But let's sit down together and get, well, real. What I'm going to talk about is what the dermatologist found during that skin check. There's a little spot on my shoulder. Nothing big, nothing ugly. It wasn't screaming for attention by any measure at all. It was just not going away. It was persistent. And I've learned something about persistent things. They deserve curiosity. She looked at it and she said, let's biopsy that, which is medical language for let's take a tiny piece of you and ship it somewhere to be evaluated. There's something humbling about that. First, they numb you, they scrape, a little bandage about this size, and they say, we'll call you. And here's the thing. They never actually call you about anything good. A week later, I had a voicemail. Please call for your test results. Go. There is something about that tone, neutral, professional, efficient, that lets your imagination do the heavy lifting. In that space between hearing the message and returning the call, my mind became a screenwriter. I sat there for a moment with my phone in my hand, heart beating just a little louder. I called back. Basal cell carcinoma. Basal cell carcinoma. The word cancer lands hard, even knowing intellectually that this is the most common, most treatable form of skin cancer. My parents had it, my husband's had it, but there was a moment when my brain froze. Not panic, not tears, just froze. Like my nervous system hit pause. That moment stretched into a really long period of time, but I know it was seconds. Everything felt kind of numb around me. The room felt still. It's as if my body went, okay, everything on hold, please. I don't have any more energy for anything else right now. And in that split second, I wasn't thinking about treatment plans or survival rates. I was thinking, oh, yeah, this body, this one body. It suddenly felt less theoretical. It was definitely real and finite and precious. And I was a little bit scared. But now here's what's interesting. I couldn't get the treatment done before our trip to Florida. We were going to be gone for over 2 weeks. And I said, well, let's do it for the day after I get back. So it sat there on my calendar, waiting. Dermatologist procedure. I didn't even know what to call it. And there was something strange about going on vacation, knowing there's cancer on your body, and you're choosing to live your life for a couple more weeks before addressing it. You still laugh, you still pack, you still stand in airport security. So much fun, right? You still order something fun to drink with a fruit garnish. You still watch the sunset, and the sun rises every day. And somewhere in the background, there's a quiet mental post-it note. Shoulder, after Florida. I tried not to think about it. After all, that little red spot had already been there for a while, and it really isn't easy for me to see that part of my shoulder. But it was there, like a small stone in your pocket. Not so heavy that you get dragged down, just noticeable. But here's what I love. That diagnosis didn't cancel the joy. It coexisted with it. I rode rides. I celebrated. I wore the button. If you don't know what I'm talking about, listen to last week's episode, 60 Years Young, and hear the rest of that story. And occasionally I would catch a glimpse of that red spot and think, we'll take care of you soon. That feels important. Life does not pause while we wait for procedures. Joy and uncertainty can occupy the same space. We got home yesterday. 2-week trip. I'm exhausted. I know. You don't have to feel sorry for me. I had a great 2-week trip. But today I got up and I did my yoga and I went in for the treatment on my shoulder. I wore this off-the-shoulder top to make it easy for them to access that spot. There is something slightly absurd about choosing your outfit for medical efficiency, but also fashionable dressing can be practical, people. And it felt like a quiet act of cooperation and maybe just a little radical disruption that I refused to be less than fabulous. This little spot on my shoulder, not going to win. I'm here. Let's do this. I sat upright on the table. She offered me the opportunity to lie down, and I said, wouldn't that make it harder to get to the spot? And she said, yeah, it would. And I said, well, the spot is far enough back that I can't easily see what you're doing. I'm just going to sit here and look forward. You know, it may have been a gift that I just sat there and looked forward. And maybe I just put my brain back in Disney World just a little bit. First, I felt the needle. You were injecting lidocaine to numb it up. That actually was the most painful part, strangely. It was just a little sharp, burning pinch that says something's about to happen. I breathed. It went numb. It's amazing how the body just does that and responds so quickly. I could hear the hiss of the cauterization. If you know that sound, you know. There was a faint smell. Let's have a little drink on that one. I tried not to focus on it. Isn't it interesting how we can handle the big word, carcinoma, but a tiny sensory detail can make us want to crawl out of our skin? But it needed to be done, so I stayed. I breathed, reminded myself this is care, and then it was done. A small bandage, you can see it's really tiny. And they said, schedule a follow-up in 6 months. That was it. No dramatic music, no cinematic lighting, just stewardship. Stewardship is love in action over time. You know, it was almost too easy for all the anxiety, all that anticipatory storytelling, all that bracing, all that rehearsing of worst case scenarios in the quiet corners of my mind, or maybe the noisy corners of my mind. And yet the reality is it was efficient, routine, and easily contained. As I drove home, I felt just a teeny bit of nausea, but I suspect that was the nerves releasing more than anything else. My body exhaling, the adrenaline settling, that panic freeze finally truly thawing. Right now, it's a tad tender, a little sore. It's a quiet reminder, but mostly I feel relieved to have it done. There is such a gap between fear and reality sometimes. Fear, that is over the top cinematic sometimes. Fear writes those sweeping, dramatic scripts. You know, the stuff that sells on Netflix. Fear imagines worst case scenarios with surround sound and lighting effects. Fear casts you in a role you didn't audition for. But then there's that little whisper of reality. Reality says, hey, we caught it early. A+ for getting an annual skin check. Reality says, you can go home now. Reality says, see you in 6 months. We talk a lot on this podcast about living the wonderful bucket list life, about expansion, about not shrinking, and saying yes to the big things. But none of that happens without this physical vehicle. Now, if I handed you the keys to a car and said, this is the one car you get for the rest of your life, you would most likely take care of it like Mr. Miyagi took care of his classic car in The Karate Kid. Lovingly tuning the engine, hand wash. You got it now. Wax on, wax off. That loving hand wax. Careful storage. And you'd definitely be listening for unusual sounds that indicated that maintenance was necessary. You wouldn't wait for smoke to pour out of the hood. This shoulder, this skin, this one body, it's the only one we get. Yes, there are occasional replacement parts and some optional upgrades. And yes, there are definitely tune-ups. But regular maintenance, that's devotion. Now, a younger version of me might have ignored that red spot. Might have said, well, it's nothing. Another version of me might have ignored it out of fear that the diagnosis was something I don't want to hear. But this version of me said, let's check. That feels like growth. That feels like self-respect. That feels like leadership, the kind that starts at home, but in your own cells. Leadership isn't just public. It's personal. It's answering that voicemail. It's showing up for the procedure. It's staying on the table, even when you hear the hiss. Now, there might be a small scar, and I love my scars. They make me who I am. Every little scar has a story, whether they're physical or emotional. There was a childhood tumble when I fell up the stairs. Still can feel that on my leg. You don't ask about it. It was very embarrassing. How about that kitchen mishap that left that little scar on your arm? The surgery that fixed something broken. Got those too. Scars are evidence. Evidence that something happened. Evidence that something healed. They are proof that I lived. And proof that I survived. Now, soldiers get medals, but most of us just get the scars. If this shoulder carries a faint line from this moment, it will not be a mark of fear. It will be a mark of participation. So here's the gentle nudge today. If there's an appointment you've been postponing, if there's a test you've been avoiding, if there's a red spot, literal or metaphorical, that's been quietly persistent, this is not a fear-based invitation. It's a stewardship invitation. It's a love your one body invitation. Take care of your one body. It's carrying your dreams. It is holding your voice. It is the home of your wonder. And sometimes loving it looks like an off-the-shoulder top and a small Band-Aid. I'm tender tonight, but I'm grateful and very much present and still here. Have a wonderful week and take care of yourself. And if this episode made you think of someone, share it with them. Share that you want them to take care of themselves and that you make a pact to do likewise for yourself. Oh, and maybe share a beverage as well. Make it a real communion. And look for the wonder in every day. And remember, participation creates the magic. Talk to you next week.
Like what you heard here today? Then we should be friends. I suggest you join my Facebook group. It's a good way to connect. We can have a conversation. Ask me questions, whatever you want to do. It is called the Wonderful Bucket List Life. That's Wonder-Full Bucket List Life. Be a bucket lister and join me on this adventure. Or you can go to my webpage, which is Wonder Wendy and Friends. Join the mailing list, learn about the book I wrote, adventures that are coming up in the future, and other podcasts. I look forward to talking to you soon, and stay hydrated. Have a great day.